Hi guys, welcome back to the Spurred On podcast. And we have amazingly, Tottenham Hotspur got 2 transfers through the door by the 13th of January, and before in fact. Unbelievable. It shows to me just how much Daniel Levy believes in Ange Postecoglou. Ange Postecoglou came out and said explicitly in the press, and no doubt behind the scenes as well, we need players through the door early in January. Otherwise it's a waste. Otherwise, they won't be able to get up to speed by the time our players are all back from injury and tournaments abroad by the end of January. And 2 are through the door already. So excited to have Radu Dragusin and Timo Werner in the squad, potentially, for the Manchester United game. The only thing that could potentially stop Radu Dragusin playing by the time that I'm filming this on Friday kind of lunchtime is whether his international clearance and work permit comes through. But my feeling is that Spurs will have dealt with that, so that he can be in the squad on Sunday at Old Trafford. But the reason I'm bringing up those 2 early signings is because it leaves room for potentially one more deal to come through this window. In my opinion, that will be at the back end of the window when things start to get spicy and clubs start to panic. And I think Tottenham Hotspur right now will be looking at their targets and saying, if we can bring this down to the end of the window and maybe even potentially get an offer in for Pierre Højbjerg or Ollie Skip on loan or something like that, then maybe they would push the boat out and spend some budget that maybe they hadn't kind of earmarked for this January, that perhaps bring it forward from the summer, like they did with Pedro Porro last year, where they got him in on initial loan and then the deal went through in the summer. It would not surprise me at all if that happened. We were told in advance of this window that Tottenham Hotspur were looking for a forward who could play across the forward line. Well, we've got that in Timo Werner. A centre-half, a kind of young, exciting centre-half who can battle with Mickey van der Ven and Christian Romero for that centre-back spot. We've got that in Radu Dragusin. The other thing we were told that we were looking for potentially is a young, exciting, ideally homegrown central midfielder, but not only homegrown, but ideally. And that is where I think we'll be looking come the end of the window. So what I thought I'd do is trawl through the rumours, the transfer rumours, the transfer gossip, the tittle-tattle, and see if we can talk about a couple of those potential central midfielders who could come in. What I will say is I've been very impressed with the way that the new recruitment team and Lang himself as the sporting director or head of recruitment have been incredibly kind of quiet in terms of their dealings. The Timo Werner signing that just came from absolutely nowhere is a great example to me of how Spurs are now trying to keep a lid on the leaks. Now, obviously, Dragusin, not sure. You tell me in the comments how you're supposed to pronounce it. But obviously, that was kind of shouted from the rooftops because his agent and Genoa were trying to get as much money as they could. But apart from that, there aren't that many leaks and rumours about. But I'm going to talk about a couple of the central midfielders that Spurs are interested in. Starting with Joao Gomez from Wolves. Only recently signed for Wolves from Flamengo in Brazil for 18.7 million euros. He played 86 times for Flamengo. He's only 22 years old. He is a stocky number 6, but with like Brazilian flair. I could see him potentially taking the place of Pierre Højbjerg as that kind of number 6 battler in terms of, will it be Yves Bissouma or will it be, at the moment, Højbjerg playing in that number 6? I think if we get a move for Højbjerg, we might end up going for a player just like Joao Gomez. He's played 28 times for Wolves. He's a stocky build, really tough tackler. Kind of not your classic Brazilian in that 6 role, but he's also got the kind of more Brazilian flair and definitely plays his passes a lot earlier than Højbjerg. And that is something that I know Ange Postecoglou gets so frustrated with Højbjerg. He's got an unbelievable work rate, Joao Gomez, and reads the game incredibly well. Brave on the ball, likes to get himself out of tight positions, but also always shows for the ball from his centre-halves. If his full-backs have got throw-ins, he's always going for it. And sometimes I've seen situations where and you see this a lot with Spurs actually, where they take short throw-ins and we try and give the ball back to the thrower, and the thrower is immediately under pressure. I've seen some really good examples of Joao Gomez where he shows for the ball from throw-in, and as the player who's behind him thinks he's going to pass it straight back to the thrower, he'll turn away and suddenly he's off and he's got a chance to play the ball through to his kind of number 10 or his forwards. That's something that I know will impress Ange Postecoglou in terms of that kind of bravery on the ball, ability to turn out of small corners and tight situations. He's also, of course, being Brazilian, a good passer and a very calm finisher. Mind you, I say that about being Brazilian. I'm not sure I would count Emerson Royal. No shade to Emerson Royal. I love him. The most confident footballer in the history of certainly of Tottenham Hotspur. But he is the least Brazilian footballer I've ever seen in terms of he's just not that gifted on the ball. But mind you, he plays like he is. So, I don't know. Anyway, so Joao Gomez, like I said, only recently signed for Wolves from Flamengo. So it's interesting that Spurs are interested in him. But Brazilian rumours coming out saying that Tottenham have spoken to him and his people and have said they will be looking to invest in him at some point in the future. For me, it seems like January will be a bit too soon for this transfer. Wolves wouldn't want to let him go. It would take something astronomical, I think, in the realm of over 35 million euros. And I don't think that's going to happen right now, or at least I'd be very surprised. But this sounds to me like one that maybe Paratici and Lang and the recruitment team have got on their list for down the line. Interesting player. Check him out if you get a chance. And Wolves under Gary O'Neill doing really well. The next player I want to talk about, someone I've spoken about a bit before, and this rumour just won't go away. He scored the winner against Chelsea in the League Cup semi-final first leg for Middlesbrough in the week. It's Hayden Hackney, 21 years old, England under-21 international with 5 caps for the under-21s. He is interesting Spurs, but also Man City, Man United and Liverpool. Where would you want to go right now? If those clubs were interesting you, where would you want to go? I would want to go to Spurs. You look at how Big Ange are playing and how he will invest in youth and how he will give youth a chance if you're good enough. Just look how he's given Destiny Udogie his chance. Just look how he's given Pedro Porro the chance, even though he was deemed not to be a good enough defender. Totally untrue. So if I'm Hayden Hackney and his people, I'm looking at Spurs and I'm thinking this could be a really good opportunity. He's played 51 times for Middlesbrough, scored 4 goals, and he is a lovely footballer. Much taller than the majority of central midfielders, really rangy player, but so good in tight situations. Loves getting on the ball, just loves it. Really exciting. Kind of reminds me of a bit of Bentancur, a bit of Michael Carrick in his day, how he shows for the ball and happy to turn away. Really, really great player. Good turn of pace as well to get himself out of tight situations or to beat a man in central midfield. And that is something that Ange Postecoglou loves as well. And I think Pierre-Emile Højbjerg suffers from a kind of lack of pace to get him out of those kind of situations. And I think Ange is looking for athletes when he's buying players at the moment. If you look at all the players we've bought since Ange came in, athletes, in the most part big players as well, and Hayden Hackney is, like I said, bigger than the average centre midfielder, so I can totally see why he's on the list. Really good at through balls as well, great vision for a player in central midfield, loves the little slide through pass. I could see him potentially setting up Sonny or Brennan Johnson or Timo Werner if he's still at the club past the summer with some of these lovely tight slide rule passes. Lovely vision of a player. Now, I wonder with this signing, is this a classic Spurs buy to loan back? As I mentioned, Middlesbrough still in the League Cup. They've got the second leg at Chelsea. So, imagine they're 1-0 up after the first leg. Imagine they make it through to Wembley. No chance, I don't think, of Middlesbrough selling him outright to come in January. But if Middlesbrough were to lose in the second leg and go out of the competition, I wonder if Spurs might be willing to buy him then and bring him in January, especially if Højbjerg gets sold to, say, Juventus or Atletico Madrid, who've rumoured to be been interested in him. But maybe it's more likely that Spurs will do a similar thing to what they did with Destiny Udogie and say to him, we're going to buy you now and we're going to let you finish the season at Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough are kind of mid-table in the Championship at the moment, but the kind of morale from this great cup run, I think, will push them towards the playoffs in the second half of the season. Michael Carrick, highly thought of manager, doing really well at Middlesbrough. Maybe someone to look at and think about maybe for mid to long-term future as a Spurs manager as well. That's not to say I want Ange Postecoglou ever to leave Spurs or looking like he will. But, you know, you've got to do what Brighton do and really have your ducks in a row just in case someone pinches Ange. Who are the next potential managers? Carrick, he's made a good start at Middlesbrough. It's one to think about anyway. So, Hayden Hackney, I'd love to get him through the door. He looks like a Spurs player. He really does. Looks like a Spurs player. And I think he'd be available at the moment for between 15 and 20 million pounds. English club to English club tax, English player tax, homegrown player tax. I think Middlesbrough would probably ask for 20 to 25 million. And I think maybe we could get them down to somewhere between 15 million plus add-on, something like that. I think we should do it. Okay, that's in terms of the incomings. I just wanted to talk about the outgoings. Eric Dier, I know I mentioned him a little bit the other day. I'm really pleased that Spurs have released a lovely kind of montage video, and that Eric Dier did a great goodbye video himself, and I think he's starting to get the respect from fans that he deserves. He's been a real stalwart for our club over the last 9.5 years, and he deserves that respect. I've been getting quite emotional watching some of those videos, and I get really frustrated with people who just abuse him. He's not abuse-worthy. He's given 100% for this club for many, many years. Really, really pleased to see that he's getting some of the respect that he deserves, and it's a great move for him at Bayern Munich. It's a great move for Harry Kane to have his mate there. They'll help each other, and I want them to do well. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you want Eric Dier to do well? What are your memories of him as a player? We've got to respect these former players of Spurs when they do as well as they possibly can for the club. Obviously, I want to talk a little bit about Dragusin's agent. He's been spouting off the whole time, but again, since he's now moved to Spurs, his first thing was we were surprised that he wanted to go to, or that he turned down Bayern Munich. Well, he's got loyalty. He's not coming for the money. He's coming to build his career. And then since he signed, the agent has already said, he sees himself playing at Real Madrid or Barcelona in 3 or 4 years' time. There's nothing wrong with him thinking that. If he is so good that we get, 100, 115 million from Barca or Real in 3 or 4 years' time, then it's benefited Spurs. But the agent doesn't need to come out and say it. Poor form, and it would not surprise me at all if Spurs are getting in Dragusin's ear over the next 6 months, year or two, saying, I'm not sure about your agent, mate. Why don't you come across to one of these agents that we feel comfortable with? Anyway, finally, just some rumoured outgoings of former Spurs players potentially going to West Ham. Stevie Bergwijn, Jack Clarke at Sunderland, and Marcus Edwards from Sporting Lisbon, all being rumoured to be going to West Ham potentially. Jack Clarke and Stevie Bergwijn definitely have 25% sell-on fees, or certainly Jack Clarke does. I'm sure Bergwijn will have a sell-on fee for Ajax as well. So that could benefit Spurs. Interesting that West Ham fishing around our ex-players. They've got a lot of injuries at the moment. They've had a good season so far, but a bizarre club whose fans don't even like their manager, even though he won them a European trophy, and they've not been in a relegation battle for years. What an odd club. Anyway, be interesting to see if those players come back to the Premier League. Guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. If you're listening on the podcast, please come across to YouTube, youtube.com/@BarnabySlater_, and vice versa. If you're watching, thank you so much. Please do go to the Spotify or to Apple Podcasts. Drop me a subscribe or a follow. It really helps me be able to make this daily content. And if you want to be a Spurred On Pro member, all the details are in the description boxes. It's only £1 a month. And very soon we're going to start those members-only live streams and Q&As where we can talk about the latest going on at Spurs. Thank you so much, guys. And with Man United coming up on Sunday, let's get behind the scene. Come on, you Spurs.